Recording is on.
Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, September 8th, 1500 UTC, starting first with the proposal roundup on mainnet. First, there is a transfer 5 ETH to DXA1 DAO base, and that's followed by a transfer 695 ETH to DXA1 DAO base. This was a funding proposal to fulfill on the previous signal proposal of a $2.25 million commitment to Arbitrum 1, DXDAO's based on Arbitrum 1. So it was split in two because we were using a new multi-sig that would hopefully give the same address across multiple chains. And that new multi-sig also comes with a new ETH relayer contract, because any ETH sent from DXDAO to a smart contract wallet such as Gnosis Safe requires a relayer contract to actually go through. So this proposal was to ensure and test that. This was submitted, I guess it was like last Tuesday or Wednesday. And I think and that was actually before a lot of different things have been developing with Swapper and and DXvote on Arbitrum 1. So like, I don't think that this will be, and even these proposals are actually to deposit into a different DXvote base there. So I think right now, this transfer 5 ETH to DXA1 DAO base proposal can go through and is planning to go through as a way to test the ETH relayer. And then I actually voted down the transfer 695 ETH to DXA1 DAO base, which kickstarts the overtime process, because all proposals on mainnet need to be in the same end result for 48 hours to prevent last-minute voting attacks. So what we can do is this can actually extend this proposal's length while we're testing. So depending on how we're feeling about whether we want to move forward with the 695 ETH transfer proposal, another rep holder could vote on this proposal within the next 36 hours, and then that would make the proposal shift to the 4, and it would be slated to pass in 48 hours because it would have to go through the same overtime plan there. So I don't know if there's discussion on questions about these two proposals, or maybe discussion on what we should be doing in terms of the 695 ETH proposal. I think Sky has suggested of maybe just letting that proposal fail, because we actually can't use a multi-sig on Arbitrum 1 right now. So that's maybe we should wait for that before actually executing on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
So with some pushing of Gnosis, hopefully they'll have like a UI that makes the multi-sig on Arbitrum usable. You know, some projects are lined up things like prior to Arbitrum launching, and then there's a handful of projects that are like waiting to see and like moving a little slower. So they have a plan. The smart contracts for the safe are on Arbitrum. We actually have a safe, but Augusto tried really hard. We have no way to interact with it, basically, and so we kind of need the UI. So if you let the 5 ETH pass, we could have that sitting there. We could test the mainnet multi-sig and the relayer and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense to have the really big amount sit in obviously the mainnet safe. So either failing that one or continuing to postpone it, which seems a little of a pain. Maybe just canceling it or letting it fail would be ideal. And then we could, when we're ready to go, and even if there's a new idea, we could experiment with the 5 ETH and see how we can get it across to Arbitrum. It's worth having a little bit there to. We can also check with the Arbitrum team. I know it's not a priority, but maybe there is an alternate receiver way or something like that, but which we're not aware of. And so it's good to have something for testing, but the large amount, and I think John also said, like, that's a really big amount of ETH to just be sitting and waiting. So it's safer to have it in the DAO, probably, on mainnet.
Yeah, I would probably lean towards letting it fail, and because until things are sorted out better, it would be good to be ready to move, start moving capital over. But I mean, we could do that with another proposal and maybe even take it more incrementally, depending on how the situation evolves. I guess the silver lining is like we may want to see how farming starts and stuff before moving capital over anyway, so that we could make trades on mainnet.
And then the other way, like, okay, maybe not that full amount of capital, but like we can use member balancer to get capital into the DAO on Arbitrum, and we just probably do it in smaller clips or something. But we could actually, well, we don't want to do that today because we want to know what the correct DAO is and stuff. But we could do, we could get a couple $100,000 there to like have capital there using member balancer pretty easily, and it's no risk to the DAO basically.
Yeah, I guess just thinking about the timelines for these, and because since mainnet proposals take 8 days, and thinking about getting funds or there. So I guess we wouldn't, in the wait and see, we're not saying we would want funds, say, by next Friday or something. Because I think if we wanted them there, then we would need to submit another proposal sometime soon. Maybe it could be in a smaller amount just to get things started. But just thinking that like whenever we want funds in there, about a week before to be there. I think Sky, obviously we can do member balancer too, I think, but that's just like not as large.
But the timing with the multi-sig is we don't know when the safe is going to be ready. Right. So we can't plan for 8 days, because let's assume the safe's not there for a month. Then what, right?
Right. I mean, so the downside to all of this is the gas cost of these proposals, right? Like we're basically trying to assume that the safe will be there and have these proposals ready to go when it is. But the downside of this, right, is that this is like $600, $700 in proposals that we're not getting. So I think that's fine, because this is a lot of money that we're testing here. But I think we need to get like the bridge process. Yeah, I think the bridge process will be another thing that I don't know if that can we use a multi-sig, the Gnosis safe for that? To Arbitrum 1.
Yeah, the whole point of having this new multi-sig is to be able to use the actual Arbitrum bridge.
And the Arbitrum bridge has Wallet Connect, I guess, is what I'm saying, or something. Well, this will have to test or figure out.
I think so. Not sure.
Yeah, that's why it definitely makes sense to let the 5 ETH go through, and like so we could try to figure it out and verify that it works. Like, I guess the other thing we could do is like make a 100 ETH proposal or something that's a more, a smaller amount of money just to have it ready. But the member balancer might be a good way to go too.
Yeah, I do think we are in general like a little wait and see over the next couple of days, and I think taking our time with Swapper has been helpful in there, and so we can. I don't think there's as strong of an urgency maybe as when we originally submitted this proposal.
Yeah, we were trying to be aggressive, which is good, but I guess it was optimistic on how things would play out, and it's not quite ready yet. So we'll just have to revisit in the next few days or as we go.
Yeah, I'm not sure the bridge has Wallet Connect, which is then another issue, which is why we need the bridge new interface on Swapper, because we could implement Wallet Connect.
That would be a huge differentiator for the Swapper bridge if it was the only one that had Wallet Connect.
For sure.
Cool. Anything else on this? we'll report back on the 5 ETH transfer and see if we can bridge it over and kind of know a lot more with that. And I think for now, that letting the 695 ETH continue to fail is the best move. Moving along, there is a member balancer reimbursement for Gen again for Sky, which is slated to pass in a couple of days. I want to table this if that's okay and talk about it in the discussion area because I think it opens up another discussion point. And then there is the signal proposal for Treasury diversification proposal V3. Dave, do you want to speak to this?
Sure thing. So the proposal was live on the forum for a while. It's about to enter the last 2 days on mainnet. It hasn't been voted on yet. However, this proposal, Treasury diversification proposal number 3, diversifies further 5 million in Ether into RAI and LUSD, which are kind of like 2 new stablecoins, which the DXgov Treasury hasn't held so far. RAI from Reflexer Labs and LUSD from Liquidity. And then a minor amount is just kind of like a top up of DAI and USDC. And so the idea here is to kind of show some support for actual stablecoins like RAI, who are working on alternatives to just USD stablecoins, or rather USD pegged stablecoins. And go ahead and demonstrate your support or not support by voting on Alchemy on mainnet. Thank you very much.
Cool. It's worth noting that RAI is also, we're experimenting with purchasing RAI for liquidity provisioning on Swapper on Arbitrum, with Nathan is saying that RAI is planning to get whitelisted soon. Okay, and then the last on mainnet is the proposal for grant investment from DXDAO to HATS Finance. This is a $100,000 grant investment USDC. It's been talked about a lot on all the other calls. So I think everyone hopefully is aware of it. And there's been some good discussion in the forum, but wanted to see if anyone had any additional thoughts or comments here. Cool. Sweet. And then moving to XDAI base. For XDAI base, there are two buyback proposals that are fully live on there. And then there's number 41, number 42, and then number 43 has just been submitted today. As a little update on the buyback in general, actually, Dave noticed that the last buyback proposal, the trade was actually not completely executed. So we just went back and looked at that, and it turns out that in the proposal, one of the parameters is the minimum token amount out. So this is the minimum amount of DXD that's expected for that order. And that's been the same for all of the orders the whole time, which is 50 DXD. And this is to prevent if there was some manipulation of the price on Swapper, which the relayer takes as an oracle. If there was some manipulation, then the order would fail. There wasn't any manipulation. It's just that the order itself was requesting less than 50 DXD. And that's primarily because of two things. One, the DXD WETH price has gone up. So for the amount of WETH you are inserting, you're actually getting less DXD back. And then two, the amount of ETH has gone up. And so now the buyback proposals were only about 8 or 9 or 10 WETH in trade orders, whereas like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, they were around 17 or 18 WETH. So that also gives you less DXD total. So the next two proposals, depending on how the price of DXD WETH goes over the next couple of days, the next proposals may also have the same fate. Those are slated to pass. I think one is in 8 hours and the other is, 48 hours. That we'll be monitoring that. But Dave is planning to submit, I think, the 43 one, which was just the funding proposal was just submitted today, and that will lower the min token amount, and we'll be make sure to track this going forward to make sure that the orders get placed. So a couple other things with buyback that I wanted to mention. I just wanted to see if there are any questions about this failed trade, place trade.
Yeah, this stuff is a little tricky, right? And all I think is opportunities for the governance interface in the future to help with the people making the proposals. Like, I kind of view all these every time we have like problems like this, it's actually an opportunity, right? Like, because we're sort of trailblazing with some of this stuff, and when we realize like some of the difficulties with the UI, we should be thinking about it from that perspective as well, and how we can make this easier for people and more robust in the future.
Definitely. Yeah, so we'll check on the buyback in a bit, but I just want to get through the proposals. The next, the Medusha contributor proposal, I believe this is Medusha's first one as a full-time contributor to DXgov, so that's exciting. He's been doing a lot of great work. And then there is level K reimbursement for June, July, and August for ETHWorks payments. I think, John, this is from you. And so I don't know, maybe if you want to talk about this. I guess this is with ETHWorks, who has been doing some work on Swapper. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. So it's Alexander from ETHWorks. He started working in May. So this is the second proposal like this I have done, but it's actually grouping the last 3 months. So I realized, like, so we have now Alexander and a couple of devs from SpaceInch helping out on contracting work. So I don't know if we should be doing something maybe I'm not following the best process here, because maybe we should be doing this a little more prospectively. But it's also a little bit difficult to project exactly how much the contractors will be working. So I'm curious what people think is maybe the best way to be doing this going forward. And I know there were some questions around SpaceInch as well, so maybe we could think about that a little bit, because I guess like this work wasn't really approved ahead of time by the DAO, but it is completely in support of the people who are contributors working and do have worker proposals passed by the DAO. So
yeah,
I guess it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, just as interesting, because like the next proposal I didn't mention is the SpaceInch development work proposal, and so these I think are coincidentally very similar, that they're coming together in the same one. So the SpaceInch one is a slightly different format in the sense where this proposal is actually, the funds are actually being sent to a SpaceInch address, even though it's being submitted by me, by Candy Fork. Whereas this one from ETHWorks and Level K, I think if I'm hearing correctly, like Level K paid ETHWorks over the last 3 months, and then this is Level K like requesting reimbursement for that.
Yeah, exactly. I have an agreement through Level K with
Right.
ETHWorks, and then and they're sending invoices to Level K, and then that's in support. So I guess like what I'm realizing now is like, or just asking out loud, is should I have put in some kind of a proposal that's more prospective, right? Like, this is the plan with this group,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm hoping that the SpaceInch one is actually a model for others going forward, just because it's also not prospective. So this is like a $21,000 payment for July and August. We have been talking about this over the last couple weeks and months, or maybe like 4 weeks. So there is some delay in just like the back and forth of getting the contract signed. But I think when it is helpful for I think, contributors or governance participants to be able to like move things forward based upon like the faith that proposals will come after it, because that allows things to stay nimble, right? And I think it makes a lot of sense, because like those are the people that have a lot of rep and will be voting on the proposal. So I think there is some way that is okay as a way of providing, of taking a little bit of a risk, though, because at the end of the day, it's only whether the proposal passes or fails or not. So it's up to that contributor to actually make sure that proposal is going through. I think the one thing I like about the Space Inch is that it does this proposal here does give a model for how things will go going forward. So in the proposal, it actually has an IPFS link to a master service agreement, which Tammy had worked on with Space Inch's lawyer, which is kind of what presumably Level K probably signed with ETHWorks to dictate the relationship between Level K and ETHWorks. But this MSA is actually between Space Inch and DXgov. Now, it doesn't really come with the same, I think, legal protections, and there's been a lot of interesting discussions on that. But at least I think that actually creates the relationship between them and establishes like how it will be running going forward. And then with Space Inch, I think the idea is every month or 2 months or whatever the cadence is to do like a follow-up, basically invoice for payment based upon the parameters laid out in the master service agreement and the scope of work in that first proposal, then just do like an invoice for that. I think that is like the best one long term. I actually think this is the best one for right now. And I think long term, it's best if contractors we're working with are actually doing proposals themselves. But I think we have to like work on a lot of making that easier so that anyone can do that. But I think the closer the contractor comes to DXgov and like projecting the scope going forward, I think the better. John, I think with the ETHWorks, I guess it would be, is that like kind of a, just going forward, Alexander is working on Swapper, and maybe there's like a DAO talk thread that we should have that's like, this is what, Alexander's role is, or this is how he's like providing something just to reference back to.
Yeah, it would probably be good to have a thread and maybe like a proposal that sort of, sets it up for a certain amount of time within certain like boundaries, right? He's basically like what I call it, or what you would call staff augmentation, right? Like he's just supporting the Swapper team, and sometimes it's not full time. And Zet, you could probably speak to the working relationship with Alexander better than I can, but. Yeah, I mean, it's basically to support development on Swapper, which when we started was, sorely needed. And I think we probably still are benefiting from having the extra developers. So yeah, what I could do is make a DAO talk post with Zet about it moving forward. And that would sort of just like give the DAO some input as to like whether this is a good move or not, right? Like ahead of time rather than just after the payments are made and stuff.
I like from my side, I would say we should do this kind of things more often. Instead of like we do have this startup mindset, which is good. Like we should have multiple hats. We should be evolving, getting better and stuff. But sometimes it actually costs the projects and the DAOs more money if people that is not, I would say, it's not actually professional in all this stuff, doing all this stuff, and you're actually taking away your professional time doing something you're not 100% like knowledgeable of. And sometimes also, like in the case of Federico, let's say, like we're wasting his super knowledgeable time doing like more like front end stuff when there's actually more front end people than smart contract people. So it's easier for us to get smart contract from Federico versus someone else. So I've like figured, yeah, let's take away some like time from Federico so he can focus on smart contracts. And I think at least Federico's super thankful of this, and we need to, yeah, think of which hats we should wear and which one can we actually solve by just, yeah, getting some contractors.
Yeah, that's why the Space Inch proposal is so cool. If we can set examples of how this can work, I think hopefully that'll make it easier to do this more in more places.
I mean, ideal is to recruit, right? Get these people in, like if we have more front-end people and more smart contract people. But until we're there, I don't think we should wait, and contract is the way we could. Yeah, we could basically win. And nowadays you need to talk to these contractors beforehand. So I think we should do that more, and like we are already discussing this for other projects, and it's not only developers. It could be anything from design to doing websites.
And there are a few other engagements, right? There's Entre Casa with the landing page. There's Hunter Design with the Omen landing page. There was Bertie with the Mesa/Aqua Design. I forget the name of the design agency that was doing the Omen video, but like, yeah, there have been a handful of engagements with other service providers outside of DXgov.
And I actually think the long-term way is there are all these service providers, right, that are providing different pieces to DXDAO. And I agree that we should be engaging them, but I would hope someone like SpaceInch maybe becomes part of the DXDAO ecosystem in the same way that like Level K or Candy Fork is, right? And they didn't come in through like an individual contributor level where like that's kind of where we're coming in, but more coming where they provide support across Swapper, across maybe they're participating in other areas. And so like, I think that we can kind of think bigger about the ways that entities can enter the DXDAO ecosystem.
Yeah, and rep holders may not be just individuals, right? They may be organizations and project and companies, and yeah, that have active engagements with DXDAO or active stakeholders in DXDAO, but maybe it's not the only thing that organization is doing, and maybe they have expertise in certain DAO services or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I could see that being commonplace, and I think it raises some interesting questions around like rep distribution and holding on what that means too, though. So if you have like, it's a little bit different model, right, for an individual to have rep versus an organization. So I think that also raises some interesting questions, but we could talk about that more when we get to governance 2.0.
Yeah, especially then, because then DXD holder, like in DXD holders having a say, you have a fund that maybe holds a lot of DXD, right? Even like 1KX, I think we got, they've got some small amount of rep. I think the same thing with Delphi. So like, how do those entities interact and different types of rep holders? And then that was it for XDAI base. And then I am, I think, going with this. I think Sky came up with this. Is it DXA1 DAO? Maybe that's the shorthand we can use for the DXDAO Arbitrum base. But I was going to use that as an opportunity for like a DX vote check-in, and then maybe Augusto, you just want to take that as an opportunity to like talk a little bit about the DXgov dev formation. Augusto, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought that we wanted to talk about DX. A1, that is how we call it on everything one. Anyway, I don't know which is the name. Yeah, DX governance. We kind of start this GitHub organization with Ross. The main idea is to have all the technical resources related to governance, which are DXgov contracts and DXvote repositories. There, we are going to, actually, it's a effort from my repository that because I was the only person who was working on that, on all the stuff since then. Till last week, because we had the last 3 pull requests that we merged on DXvote. They are from outside contributors, from Adam and Ross, which is awesome. They are the first pull requests that we merged from outside my contributions. And the main goal will be we will be working with Ross, making sure that we are going to have a DX governance squad. Mainly compounded by developers and DX governance related people. The plan will be to start getting a roadmap on what we are going to do on DXvote and how we are going to get to DXvote 2.0. That is how I call it. That we are going to implement governance 2.0, governance 2.0, right? Implementing all the governance 2.0 technical requirements that we decided last year. So there are some technical steps that should be taken to make sure that we implement everything the right way, following the principles of decentralization that took us to make DXvote. And yeah, we are going to be sharing some information and details with Ross, with the DX governance related people soon. Those are Chris, Dave, John, Sky. We are going to start thinking about, I call it attack plan to DXvote 2.0. So the attack plan is going to have different phases that we are going to be pursuing with different features that we are going to be integrating. And this is going to help us bring DXvote from 1.0, that we are not even there, to the 2.0 version that is going to be using DXg, governance 2.0, so all that stuff. So that is a short update. We already started working on it with Ross, and we are going to share it internally and then publicly when we have something. And looking forward to talk more about this on this one with everyone there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really exciting. I think John says that they're taking control of their own destiny, right? And I think it is like that. And it's cool to be building things that will alleviate and fix our own problems and issues. And it is, I don't know, with the Arbitrum one launch and kind of the deployment, it's very similar, I think, when we launched the DXDAO base, and we're kind of doing a lot of the cross-chain stuff. In a lot of ways, like DXDAO is the first one that's running into these issues, right? That the market doesn't really know what products or services to build because no one's really doing the on-chain governance that we're doing. But things like even like all the use of relayers and like all the kind of bridging we're doing, even like the ENS proposals. I think these are all examples of like infrastructure that DXDAO has pioneered because it's doing on-chain governance that can be used by others. And it's exciting, I think, to have a team dedicated to furthering that. So excited to take that further.
So, yes, and something else that I forgot to mention is that we are also considering and planning how we are going to integrate the guilds in the DXvote application. And this is something super interesting because we are going to have a guild on Swapper. We are going to have an Omen guild, a Swapper guild, a DXg guild, and everything running over DXvote, which is very cool. It's pretty much like Sean said, taking control of our destiny and decentralization. Like when we started Swapper, when we forked Arbitrum at the beginning, it was DXSwap. We talk about this is going to be better because it's going to be completely decentralized, and you're going to control the fees using the Swapper guild. So this is something that is going to happen. Now we are going to later deploy Omen guild that is going to control Omen. We are going to deploy the DXg guild. That is something that we have also been considering, and we have the code for it for DXg holders to express their opinion. So we are taking a lot of steps toward decentralization and a lot of governance initiatives that I think they are awesome, and all of them that are going to take place in DXvote application, where again we have complete control. Is everything decentralized? It's designed to be a standalone. It's not going to go down because of the graph, because of Alchemy. It's going to be there forever.
I went to the thesaurus to look for a new way to say attack plan, but I haven't come up with anything yet.
That's because I already went to the thesaurus before I created the poll.
Stratagem. Cool. Awesome. Moving along, just some discussion items, just to chat about. I think the first is we're I guess awaiting an ENS proposal update for Swapper. So Swapper, I guess, was 2 weeks ago had the Arbitrum launch and the Swapper token launch. So we are expecting another release proposal in the coming days there. Wasn't sure if any wanted to provide any other update on Swapper. There's a lot of things going on with the deployment, I think, and catching up elsewhere, but be on the lookout for a new ENS proposal.
Right. Yeah. So because of the deployment, that there will be new proposals basically for the, approval anointment of the redeployment. We'll have to share more. We're still in the testing phase of it. I think the ENS proposal itself may cover everything if possible, but we may also need another signal proposal to do an anointment of the new DXvote address.
Yeah, I guess we're just awaiting for the ENS proposal at this time, right?
That would be that's going to be the first step. That sets the timeline for updating the DApp. The DApp will include a flow to allow Swapper holders and claimers to claim and convert their old Swapper, and just to cover that, right? So there's a claimer out there already that people have been using. There's been, I think, 800 some odd claims, and when we were discussing the redeployment, it was clear that we needed to leave that intact and convert 1-to-1 to new Swapper, because some people have claimed and traded it. It's not necessarily in the original hand, so you can't just start this over. You also can't just remove the people that have already claimed and do a new one, because then you don't really know how to prevent people from double claiming. So basically the plan was to do a conversion. I think the one other option was just leaving the existing token, but a lot had been locked up in the dead DXvote. So the decision was made to do the conversion and keep the supply the same. And so the new UI will support that conversion. And then just so when we're talking to folks in the community too, to be clear, we are redeploying everything, right? So new DXvote, new Swapper contracts, new Swapper token. So I think there was an example of somebody wanting to provide liquidity. The system is fine to use for doing that, but people should be aware that if they're going to provide liquidity on the existing system, they will need to migrate it to the new system. And I think where it's particularly important, and I think there's only been one case of somebody actually mentioning this, but if somebody was going to use the DIY farming, it is pretty important that they don't use the existing one, right? Especially because if they're committing to a longer period of time, the new system is not going to show the current DIY farms and stuff. So it's important that we make people aware of that if they come into Discord or whatever asking about that. Going off a little bit of a tangent, but then there's the new DXvote. We need to anoint that. We're taking a more gradual approach to deploying that to make sure it's stable before we give control of everything to it. But it should be set up just like the original intent was with the rep mapping from mainnet once all is said and done. So look for more details probably in the next 2-3 days.
Cool. And then moving along, I wanted to talk about refilling Gen. And so I mentioned before, there's a proposal on mainnet for a member balancer reimbursement to Sky for 10,000 Gen. And this is because Sky had deposited 10,000 XGen into XDXDAO base for it to be functioning. And so he's requesting Gen from mainnet to compensate for that. After he does that, there will only be around 29,000 Gen in DXDAO. And there's also some more outstanding member balancer Gen, primarily, I think, from myself, maybe also from Dave, where we have been sending We've sent Gen to reimburse to deposit into the DXDAO base in order to ensure that holographic consensus is coming. And then I haven't yet done my member balancer proposal, but that's around, I think, 10 or 15,000 Gen. And so if we did that, that would take down the Gen in the mainnet DXDAO base to like 10 or 15,000 Gen. And then XDAI base actually has not very much on it now. So we need to figure out a way to get more. So 25,000, as Dave says. At a very basic level, like DXDAO needs Gen to operate on mainnet and XDAI, and that's like pretty hard to escape right now. So I think it's very important that we make sure that DXDAO has Gen and can kind of function as that way. I think, as most people are probably aware, DAOstack has not been operating as close with DXDAO. We haven't been working with them in a while, and the Gen token has not seen much action really over the last 3 or 4 months. It's been pretty constant at 7 or 8 cents there. So just kind of wanted to open the floor up for like what we should be doing for this. I think the simplest way is to start allowing some member balancer or like buyback amount for Gen, so that people could submit 2,000 Gen and then get paid or reimbursed in WETH or DAI, so that the base would actually be purchasing the Gen from individual contributors. And I think that hopefully could tie us over for like the next several months as we shift maybe to more proposals on Arbitrum 1, where we use DXD for staking, and then long term we have Governance 2.0, where we're also be using DXD for staking. But curious to know what any other thoughts on the Gen situation.
I think it makes sense for the DXDAO to buy back from contributors, right? Because I don't think it makes sense for DXDAO to go and acquire more Gen. Neither does it make sense for contributors to go and acquire more Gen, right? So I feel like that's a good way to kind of balance it out, because contributors will kind of still be earning Gen by boosting stuff, right? And then whenever you have too much Gen, you could perhaps just offset it to sell it back to the DAO. I think Gen has been trading quite at like 8 or 9 cents per Gen. So if we buy it back at like 10 cents to cover gas costs and everything, I think only for contributors or something like that, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
When we say buy it back, are we talking about like a member balancer to reload it, or are we talking about like a more general?
That's what I would interpret as. We'd probably have to set something like either % above the CoinGecko price, or just like a flat price, and just say anyone who sends this amount of Gen, or maybe not anyone, maybe contributors or addresses that have rep that sends Gen to, I think, DXDAO, because that's really who needs it, can then have a reimbursement proposal for a certain amount.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we may have to do this. I'm just wondering, actually just thinking now, like whether we could maybe line up an OTC deal. But we'd have to go ask some people.
I mean, I think the OTC deal is gonna, like, that's what we're.
Oh, like on the
like, what is the DXDAO's like bid?
So I'm talking about like there's definitely some Gen whales out there that we probably know, and it's sort of a dead token, right? Like they're not working on this platform anymore. It's unclear like what the, there's no team behind it really anymore, right? So I'm almost wondering if we could acquire like a large amount for a discounted price and just put that in the DAO and maybe distribute it to contributors.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a good, like, there's not much. There's like 625 Gen in DXDAO right now, so I think we need like a more short-term way of ensuring.
Yeah, and the member balancer, that's the way to do it.
I mean, I guess the question is, does that get us to DXD staking, or do we need to have like a more interim step? Because I think it's actually a good idea even to distributing that to contributors. and it wouldn't be that much gen.
I've always thought, can we put up a funny proposal saying, do you guys want to mint gen? And we gather gen, we stake as much gen as we can. We vote on the proposal to pass, which is a proposal whether we want to mint more gen, and we want. It passes, we've guessed right, and we awarded a lot of gen, and we redistribute it.
We don't have the ability to mint new gen. That's DAO Stack's token. So it would be nice. I want to move off of gen. Like that's kind of, I think, what we need to be doing. And like DXT's staking is kind of, I think, the obvious way. I'm still a big fan of holographic consensus, and I think it would work just as better with DXT.
Yeah, we're definitely moving in that direction, right? Like in Arbitrum, it's DC, but I mean, as we saw with the launch, it's not. We need to test it and establish it before we, fully roll it out, especially with the mainnet. So I think we need like a transition plan. And the main thing is to get some short term on XDAI, right? But even on mainnet, we're running a little bit low, right?
Right. I mean, that's because we can't do the member balance. The DAO needs to purchase gen, because there's just because in the past there's been deposits on XDAI and then withdrawals on mainnet. But now, there's just not enough on mainnet to do that system again. So we need to figure out a way to purchase more gen. Anyway, I won't. I'm going to write a DAO Talk post about this today. Hopefully, we can kind of maybe finalize something in the next week or so. There,
just member balancer. Well, so I put XGen into XDX DAO only 10,000, which is not a giant amount. I think other people in the past have done larger amounts. Dave kind of requested it because I think we saw it didn't have any gen. And then the only place there is gen is on mainnet, obviously. And so 10,000 clip, and doing proposals on mainnet is super costly and inefficient. So if we're gonna do it, ideally we do it in much bigger size and probably request ETH back or something like that.
That's the whole point. We have to purchase gen. You have to request ETH or DAI, not gen, because DXDAO needs new gen. And I think all of this should take place on XDAI. Yeah, that's actually who needs the gen itself. And there's actually a lot of XGen on XDAI, or not a lot, but a lot of contributors that have a lot of XGen already there. And so I think we just need to have a standing order for a certain amount in WETH or DAI, whatever the price is, that a contributor can deposit their gen and request WETH or DAI back.
Makes sense.
And the gas cost won't be, on there because it's XDAI there. Oh, there's Keenan. I know there's some gen whales on XDAI here. It's who has the gen? It's all DXDAO.
I don't know which proposals it's locked in anymore.
I know, that's the other
thing. There's
DXvote. Should we have a gen WETH pool on XDAI Swapper?
So what I would love to see, because there's obviously, what's the I'm just looking into this now.
I would, if we had more gen, it would make sense to DXDAO to purchase a lot more gen for this. But even, gen is 8 cents. So if you spend $50,000 purchasing gen, that's a lot of gen.
And the liquidity is really bad, right? It's almost not
existent. I
also
don't think gen is a great asset to purchase. So it is a utility token, but if we could avoid purchasing a lot of gen, I think that's best. Yeah.
There's 800,000 gen in Uniswap. I think that's the deepest.
There's 175,000 XGen.
So we could just buy it on Uniswap, but it still feels like kind of a waste of money, right?
So you could also change the settings so that you basically don't use
Parameters.
one gen, right?
Yeah.
And
I guess you
maintenance.
probably have to install a new scheme though for all those. John, could we lower the gen's downstake threshold?
Oh,
Or-
yeah, you can lower thresholds through a setting to the plugin, which is possible. But I don't know if I love that idea either, because I mean, there is a purpose to having the staking, right? And it's already kind of maybe too cheap, right? Like the fact that the staking is like less than the gas cost to do the staking on mainnet is kind of probably not how the system should be, but that isn't a way to like make it more efficient. I think the easiest thing we would do is if we can figure out how to get a good chunk of gen into the DAO for a reasonable price that will just last the DAO until it's fully on DXT. And it's like the contributors, members shouldn't be forced to buy this defunct, more or less defunct token, right? So like I think that it should be something that we can figure out. Yeah.
Maybe see if Nylon's got some gen bags. Still.
Also, this is a matter of time till we start using wallet schemes with DXC voting machine on XDAI, right? Because as soon as we start integrating that, we will be able to replace Gen with DXC in XDAI and later on mainnet.
Awesome. I know we only have a couple minutes late, and I just wanted to check in on a couple things before. So just to give an update on the buyback, as I said before, there are two proposals. The most recent XDAI buyback proposal did not place the trade, and that was because the minimum token amount, or we believe the minimum token amount, was too high. And so we'll hopefully be getting, there's a risk that the two existing proposals will also have the same problem, and they're set to pass in the next 12 hours and 36 hours. But going forward, we'll adjust that. As of now, there's been 5,093 DXD purchased through buyback, and that's $1.8 million. So we're actually pretty quickly approaching the second million of the program. And yeah, and given where we're at in terms of the proposals that are outstanding and the kind of plan to do that, I think it's makes sense to have a discussion on another buyback extension proposal. And yeah, wanted to kickstart that conversation now, but knowing we don't have that much time. But the short of it is, I was going to probably be looking to just have a similar proposal to the last one that would extend it for another $1 million. And under the same parameters there, we would probably have a new way of calculating the DXD trade volume that we're trying to get, that Dave has been working on, and that will probably be included into that. But it would probably look something similar to the last one, and just seeing if there was anything else that we maybe want to put in there or change, or whether people think we should move forward with another buyback extension proposal. Cool. Well, hopefully there'll be some thoughts or comments on the forum if there's anything there. And also on that, we're trying to, I think Keenan said something in the Discord about this too, but trying to clean up the sheet and some of the trade volume a little bit more to give another update kind of with some graphs in the coming days here on buyback buyback stats. Cool. And then lastly, just contributor UX check-in. Melanie, is there anything to be aware, anything to preview in the call?
Yeah, sure. So just a quick update on contributor UX. We've still been doing a lot of planning around DX Retreat and LizCon. I just wanted to take the time to talk a little bit about Greater Than and the workshop they'll be leading for us in Lisbon on the Sunday. I believe it's, sorry, one second, Sunday, October 17th, and then Monday, October 18th. So that's right after DX Retreat and right before the Taoist and LizCon. This proposal just passed on chain a few days ago, and Nylon has really been leading this great initiative. He discussed it a few times during the BizDev calls. Francesca and Kate from Greater Than also came to the BizDev call to introduce themselves and what their collective is doing. Just to refresh, Greater Than is a collective that helps communities, like specifically self-managing like organizations and decentralized communities like DXDAO, just organize and scale. Greater Than focuses like on training, advising, helping like facilitate in areas like collaborative governance, networking, community building, and then self-organizing. So specifically at our workshop, we'll focus on identifying strategies and tools we need to make DXDAO succeed. So obviously there's so many challenges we face because of our structure as a DAO, but Greater Than can really help us navigate those challenges, just help us strategize ways to tackle them. Nylon touched on potentially having Greater Than help us define yearly OKRs or maybe even quarterly OKRs for specific squads. So I was also personally thinking it would be a great opportunity for us to touch on like accountability and how our contributors held accountable for their work and their actions while contributing to a DAO. I think it'd be even great to address like conflict resolution strategies within a DAO. The framework hasn't quite been set in stone yet. First, Greater Than is going to conduct interviews with DXDAO members and then just help identify any areas of strengths or, weaknesses, and then build from that. So with that being said, we're going to be starting the planning sessions, dive a little bit deeper with Greater Than over the next few weeks. I think it's a super cool initiative. I think we can learn a lot from the workshop. And then I personally think it's a good opportunity for DXDAO to like identify and tackle areas of weakness. And then, as a result, help us just evolve and reach our full potential. So keep an eye out for our next steps with Greater Than, but looking forward to that workshop in Lisbon. Yep. So thanks, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be cool.
Awesome. Anything else on the mind? Cool. All right. Thanks everyone for joining.